Today's story is connected to a hostel. The hero of this story is Jacob, a stubborn and slightly hot-tempered boy. His father passed away many years ago, and now he lives with his mother and stepfather. On the outside, his stepfather David seemed very nice and friendly, but Jacob always doubted his intentions. He felt that one day this man would do something terrible. One day, Jacob got into a fight with a boy at school and was expelled. But his family didn't seem to care at all. They had gotten used to Jacob's behavior. Then his stepfather Davis enrolled him in a new school, far away in the middle of a forest. Now Jacob had to stay in the hostel there. From the very first day, he found the school a little strange. There were only 2 teachers, 1 watchman, and just 5 students in total. The strangest thing was that among the 5, there was only one girl, Christine, who seemed somewhat normal. Everything else was odd. For example, Rabbi ate food through his nose, and Frederick would break plates and bang his head against the wall at the slightest thing. Jacob's roommate Phil seemed downright dangerous. Jacob was so scared that he ran out of the room. As soon as he stepped outside, he met Phil's parents and came to know that after a fire incident in childhood, Phil's face had been badly burnt. Jacob felt some sympathy for him and decided that he would now befriend him. Teacher Sherman was a very strict man. Once when Christine interrupted him in class, he punished her so harshly that all the other children began trembling in fear. Meanwhile, the other teacher, Mrs. Sherman, was completely calm and sweet, like a mother's affection. Her behavior felt like comfort for the children. Christine had been tricked by her family into being sent here. Now she was always making plans to escape. But because of Sherman's strictness, she couldn't do anything. A week passed and Jacob and Sherman's friendship grew deeper. They would often sit together, talk, watch the stars, and Jacob would sometimes brag about his old fake adventures. One day, Christine asked for permission to go to the toilet during class. In a stern tone, Sherman said, "Come back within 3 minutes or you'll be punished." Christine returned in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but still, she was punished. She quietly endured everything. Later, Christine revealed a big secret to Jacob. Actually, she hadn't gone to the toilet, but to the teacher's office. From there, she wanted to steal the school's map so she could escape. But instead, she found something else. She discovered the name Mrs. Sherman was using wasn't real. She was living here under another identity. Christine wanted to know who Sherman really was, but because of lack of time, she couldn't find out more. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Standing there was Mrs. Sherman. While the 2 friends were busy talking, suddenly in the silence of the night, a loud noise came from outside. Out of curiosity, Jacob and Phil went out and saw that the twin brothers had also arrived there. The noise was coming from Rabbi's room. Jacob was the first to move toward the room, and what he saw there was terrifying. Rabbi seemed possessed, as if by some spirit. He was repeatedly banging his head against the cupboard, and the room was filled with a strange, foul smell. He wasn't just in a half-conscious state, but had completely lost control over himself. Somehow suppressing his disgust, Jacob dragged him to the bathroom. But as soon as they opened the door, the scene in front of them was even scarier. Frederick was hanging from a noose. He was dead. Now all the children were terrified. They all ran to Sherman and insisted on calling home. Sherman didn't refuse, but he said it was too late at night. The call could only be made in the morning. Then, without listening to anyone, he put Frederick's body in the car and drove off. Christine secretly saw all of this. A thought immediately struck her mind. This was the best chance to escape. Jacob, too, had now become frightened by these events. Together, they planned to run away in the darkness of the night. But as soon as they went a little farther, luck betrayed them. They saw the same car on the way. Sherman had never left. At that moment, Jacob accidentally stepped on the watchman's alarm trigger, and sirens echoed throughout the school. Both of them ran, but they were caught. The surprising thing was that Sherman didn't say anything to Jacob. He simply told him to come to his office the next morning and then let him go. But Christine did not get such leniency. Jacob sat in his room, listening to her screams coming from downstairs, unable to do anything. The next day, Jacob went to the office. Sherman told him, "Frederick did not commit suicide. One of you killed him." Hearing this, Jacob was shocked. Then Sherman revealed the truth about the school. This school was for children who had been abandoned by their families, and Christine, she was extremely dangerous. She had killed her own brother, and because of her actions, her mother had also died. To avoid disgrace, her father had asked Sherman to keep her locked here forever. Jacob couldn't make sense of it all. Then Sherman told him the real reason. The school had fewer staff now, and he needed Jacob to convince the other children and keep the environment stable. Jacob thought it was fine and agreed. For some days, everything went well. Because of Jacob, the children's spirits became lighter, and the fear of Frederick's death began to fade. But one night, Christine came to meet Jacob again. Jacob didn't want to talk at first, but then he noticed that Christine had secretly stolen his bag. Inside that bag were old memories given to him by his grandmother, an old glove and a scarf. Jacob got very angry. He snatched the things back and was about to leave, but Christine stopped him. Jacob asked, "You killed Frederick, didn't you?" And Christine admitted without hesitation, "Yes, I had to create a scene to escape from there. But Sherman was already prepared, and my plan failed." Then Christine made a strange demand for Jacob. She told him to dress up like a girl. Jacob flatly refused, but Christine threatened him, saying, "If you don't listen to me, I'll finish Rabbi." Out of helplessness, Jacob had to wear the girl's skirt. His face was already delicate, and now he really looks like a girl. But that wasn't enough for Christine. She even did his makeup, lipstick, blush, kohl, everything. Now Jacob truly looked like a girl. He thought Christine would calm down after that, but no. Christine then told him, "Now do a dance with some hip moves." Seeing the knife in her hand, Jacob had no choice but to sway his hips. Christine even cut her own hair, and then both of them started dancing in the room together. But after a while, the atmosphere started to feel strange. Seizing the chance, Jacob pushed her hard and managed to overpower her after a brief struggle. But the strange thing was, Christine seemed to enjoy it, as if she was taking pleasure in the pain. Everything started to feel bizarre to Jacob, so he immediately left from there. Late at night, Jacob was awakened by a loud noise. The sound was coming from the rabbi's room. As soon as he reached there, he saw that the rabbi was no longer alive. He was lying on his blood-soaked sheet. Out of fear, Jacob went to check on the other children, but they were all fine. Then he heard the voices of two people downstairs. He quietly went down the stairs and saw that Sherman and Mrs. Sherman were having a serious conversation. What he heard was enough to blow his mind. The rabbi's murder had been committed by none other than Mrs. Sherman herself. The woman who had always seemed the gentlest and sweetest now had blood on her hands. When Mrs. Sherman went to dispose of the rabbi's body, Jacob secretly followed her and, by mistake, ended up in a school basement. There he saw Frederick's body still lying around, and inside a nearby fridge was another woman's corpse. Jacob also found a man's ID card there, and the truth was revealed. The real teachers were the ones whose bodies were in that place. Sherman and Mrs. Sherman was a fake teacher. Just then, he heard footsteps from outside. Jacob quickly hid behind a cupboard. A little later, Mrs. Ashman came in, dragging the rabbi's body. Somehow, Jacob tried to sneak out of there, but standing in front of him was Sherman, along with another woman. Terrified, Jacob hid inside a cupboard. What he heard next was even scarier. That woman was the rabbi's ex-wife, and she had been the one who ordered her son's killing. After the divorce, she had been taking care of the rabbi alone. His illness had drained everything from her: money, courage, and hope. Even the doctors had given up. Finally, she decided to give the rabbi peace, and for that, she hired Sherman. But when guilt began to torment her, she came back to take her son. By then, it was already too late. Mrs. Sherman had seen her arrive and killed the rabbi to erase all evidence. Now her regret was useless. She had already lost her son, and no one cared what would happen to the rest of the children. That woman was not alone. The rest of the children in the school were also broken by the same kind of sorrow. For one reason or another, their families had abandoned them. As soon as that woman tried to stand up, Mrs. Sherman suddenly pounced on her. She killed her so that no one outside would ever find out about all this. Sherman was secretly enraged by Mrs. Sherman's act, but outwardly he showed no reaction. He pulled a small vial out of his pocket and said, "I had already mixed poison in that woman's food. In 2 hours, her breathing would have stopped on its own. No trace, and nothing would be found even in the postmortem. My plan was completely perfect, but Mrs. Sherman's haste left many wounds on the body, which made me furious." After that, he called the school watchman. Jacob, who had seen everything, was terrified. But then Sherman turned and said, I knew you were hiding in the cupboard this whole time. I deliberately did everything in front of you so that you could learn. I want to make you my heir." Then he told Jacob, "Come on, let's carry the body to the hall together so we can burn it and destroy the evidence." Just then, the watchman arrived. Jacob thought maybe he would finally get help, but the very next moment, the watchman too was killed. Sherman now completely understood that the conspiracy to trap him in this hell had been planned long before. Sherman softly said, "Your stepfather secretly made a deal with me behind your mother's back. He wanted to get rid of you." And now Jacob finally understood what it meant when they said he would have to stay here forever. It meant death after that. Both of them went to the basement, where all the hidden corpses were dragged upstairs. Sherman sprayed a special chemical, sodium acetate, all over the house. When burned, it would leave behind no trace. There would be fire, but no one would ever know the truth. Then he handed the keys to Jacob and said, "Go lock all the rooms upstairs from the inside." But Jacob realized that his intention was something else. As soon as Jacob went upstairs, Sherman set fire to the staircase from below to trap him there. But Jacob was no longer someone who got scared. The blazing fire had burned away his fear. He picked up a golf stick lying nearby and charged at Sherman. Jacob kept striking him until he was completely still. After that, Jacob quickly went upstairs and told all the children to get out. He locked Sherman inside the room. Mrs. Sherman kept crying and screaming, banging on the door, but Jacob's eyes were cold. He knew that if this girl got out, even more innocent lives would be lost. Finally, Jacob left with all the other children. The police took them to the station. A little while later, Martin's parents arrived there. Jacob quietly went up to them. When Phil and Lenabelle were leaving, Jacob warned his stepfather, "Even if I don't live here anymore, I will always protect Phil." Soon after, Jacob's real mother and father arrived. The moment he saw his mother, Jacob ran into her arms. On the other side, his stepfather just stood silently in the corner, watching everything like a helpless spectator. When they returned home, everyone sat together to eat, but there was no happiness on Jacob's face. He only ate a few bites and went to his room. Suddenly, a painful scream was heard from outside. The truth was, Jacob had given the same poisonous drug to his stepfather, the one Sherman had given him, ending his game forever. In the end, for the first time, a confident smile appeared on Jacob's face. He had finally freed himself from fear, pain, and the shadows of his past. The real message of the film was, no child in the world is perfect. Every child has some struggles. The true solution is to support them, understand them, and accept them. If a child becomes stubborn or rebellious, instead of scolding, one should talk with wisdom and patience. Strictness and force only create distance in relationships. So friends, with this, the story comes to an end. If you want to see more stories like this, do let me know in the comments. And also subscribe to this channel.